Good evening, everybody. This is Mobile Home Advisory Committee, and this is Councilmember Robinson, and this is Manufactured Home Fair Practice Chair Dan Dominguez. And so we got a last-minute communication from Leilani Hines saying that she and Barbara Hamilton cannot be here because they want to. The city wants to research the laws pertaining to all these subjects and hold a city event about it separately so that they can find out, all the stuff. So we have handouts about the laws, the city laws and the state laws on these issues. So we're going to pass all of those out to all of you, and we're going to go over them a little bit. And thanks to Councilmember Robinson, we have copies of 16B, which is our rent control ordinance. A few. We have about 25. We have a small handout that's on the table, and we can provide these to you by email also, that has the web links to the city and the state laws that are most commonly relevant. And that would usually be the rent control ordinance and the manufactured home fair practices. Yeah, that's right. I said that right. I say manufactured homes so often I forgot what I was saying. California Mobile Home Residency Law. So those are the two main things that you need to look at, and both of them are available online, and these are the web links. So with that, we'll get underway. Which one of you wants to go first? Let me just do a little introduction. Okay.
Good evening, folks. As she said, I'm Rick Robinson. I'm your City Council member for District 2, which you are in. And so let me tell you what my role is here tonight. Because there's so many mobile homes in our district, I'm continually learning. This is one of the things I've found out since I've been on council is mobile home law and can get very complex and very confusing. And what I've found is there's few experts in the whole thing that can just explain it to you. And I'm trying to learn, and that's why I'm here, is to learn is one. The second thing is to listen, to hear your concerns. There may be some things that we can do as a city. There may be some things we can't. I don't know. It just depends on the things that we talk about and the things you bring up. In my learning experience the other day, I met with Jackie Bickford, who's one of our inspectors that primarily does park inspections, and we were across the street doing their Title 25 inspections. And I spent half a day with her going through the park, learning how those inspections are done and what they look for. And it was, pretty eye-opening for me on how that all works. And I know there's other inspections that get done and those kind of things. So I'm not here as an expert on all things mobile home. I just want to say that. But I am here as your council member to listen and to learn the things that I can. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dominguez here, who probably has far more background now than I do. How long you been in the game?
Not long enough.
Hi, I'm Dan Dominguez, and one of the commissioners on the Fair Practice Commission. Which is the Manufactured Home Fair Practice Commission, but I'll either refer to it as a commission or Fair Practices Commission, because it gets to be a tongue twister if I keep saying Manufactured Home Fair Practice Commission. So, as Linda pointed out, I was elected chair about a month ago or a couple of meetings ago, and I'll echo Rick's sentiments that I'm not an expert on the mobile home law. And the other piece is I'm not an expert on mobile home living because I've never lived in a mobile home park, and as being part of the commission, I'm prohibited. To be a commissioner, you cannot be a resident of a mobile home park. But I have been visiting parks, learning. I've listened to testimony for the Laguna Vista NOIs and the permissive rent increases. And so I'm one of 5 commissioners. Has everybody here ever been to a Fair Practices Commission meeting, or at least seen one on Zoom? Well, good. So I'll be brief on the presentation of what the Fair Practices Commission does. Linda or Rick alluded to it. There is an ordinance enacted by the City Council. It's called 16B, and it pertains to rent control in the mobile home parks. The commission the law controls the rents in the mobile home parks. The commission is like an administrator of the law, right? It's a quasi-judicial commission. That means that we hear evidence, we make decisions. The decisions we make are binding. They can't be appealed to the City Council. They only can be appealed to a court of law. But I don't want anybody to interpret that we have a free hand to make all kinds of decisions, because the ordinance 16B is pretty prescriptive in certain areas, like the permissive rent increases. We list, there's really 3 issues to get for the park to get an increase in the rents. One is that they have to have filled out all their registration paperwork. They have to have passed the inspection, and they have to have given a 90-day notice on the rent increase. And if they meet all those 3 criteria, then the increase will get passed on, will take effect on July 1st, or if it didn't pass the inspection, subsequent to them passing the inspection. And the increases are whatever the cost of living index, or the CPI, for the Carlsbad San Diego area, and it's 0.75% of that CPI, or a maximum of 8. So I won't get into all the mechanics of it. Just be aware that there's 17 parks that are controlled by the ordinance. It's been in place since the mid-'80s, and it has, what I view as, done a decent job of controlling rents in the park. The ordinance has issues. Nothing's ever perfect, but for the most part, it has maintained rates or rents within a reasonable spectrum of affordability. Now, I won't go through all the numbers. There's a webpage on for the Fair Practices Commission. I will tell you that as a commissioner, I was appointed in 2023, beginning of 2023, and as a commissioner, I have certain goals on the commission, and one of them is transparency, trying to make its functioning more transparent so the residents can understand what the commission does, what's empowered to do, what's not empowered to do. The other piece is communication. We've implemented email address that you can write to the commission. Just be aware that the information you send goes to all the commissioners, but the only thing we can do, and I read all those emails, by the way, and the other commissioners, I suspect, do the same. I look at the emails and I look at stuff that may pertain to 16B, and then I talk with staff to see, how to address an issue, what is this issue, but I get all kinds of emails. Some of them, it doesn't fall under the purview of the ordinance. So, but that doesn't mean that I can't talk to city staff or the Housing Commission about issues that may arise over what's in the mobile home parks. The other piece is, as a commissioner, as I said, we're the administrators, the commission's the administrators of the ordinance. But one of my goals as commissioner is to take more ownership of the ordinance. as I said early on, the city council enacted it. The city council is the only organization that can make changes to the ordinance. But the ordinance does empower the commission certain processes to make sure that they can administer the ordinance. Some of them are forms and other issues. I mean, I'm not going to delve into all of them, but my goal as a commissioner is to work with staff to take more ownership of the ordinance and make it more transparent for the residents of Oceanside. And so I won't take up a lot of time. I think I've exceeded my whatever time Linda Walshall gave me.
You can talk as long as you want.
But I will open it up to questions if anybody has any questions for myself or Councilman Robinson. Yes.
One of the issues. One of the issues that came up several years ago in our park was that the park did not pass inspection. They passed along the rental anyway. And apparently there's no mechanism for the city to verify and ensure that the park owners don't do that. I don't think it should be the responsibility of the residents to police the owners passing on a rent increase they're not entitled to. We don't have a choice.
The forms for the rent increase are all contingent on the park passing the inspection. And I know there was a lot of discussion about the increase, and there's a couple of scenarios that played out that I'm familiar with. One was Laguna Vista. I think it failed, or it initially passed the inspection and then failed the inspection on a subsequent inspection. Because they had passed already and the park owner was notified, the rent increase was permitted to go through, but the subsequent failure was treated as a code enforcement issue. And then what happens is, my understanding, it remained in place till the next go around, and then the park was told that you needed to fix this enforcement issue or you weren't going to get your increase. So even though it was code enforcement, it turned into a code enforcement issue, and then when it came around again for the next yearly inspection, it became a rent increase issue. And then one other issue was this park, Rancho San Luis Rey, and that was the fire isolation valves. There was plenty of hearings about that. It predated me on the commission, but I was out in the audience listening to the issues. And eventually they repaired the isolation valve. That was my understanding.
Nope.
Not all of them.
Nope.
Not all of
Not
them?
in time.
Nope.
Not in time. Not without our putting their feet to the fire.
Again, like everything.
And they did not pass their inspection, and they passed the rent increase anyway. They knew that they didn't pass. No, there was no question. Failure to pass inspection, rent increase anyway.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Let me just say one thing. As I said, this all predated me on the commission. It is something, as I see emails about this, it is something I've talked to staff, and the commission now is very sensitive about parks that don't pass the inspection. And I can't do something retroactively, but going forward, our goal is if you don't pass the inspection, you're not going to get the money.
Linda, you got a question back there.
Oh, hold on one second, let me just speak to what Dan just said. Thank you. One of the things that's confusing for the residents is the park owners turn in their reports every November, their annual reports on the rent control spaces and all of those numbers. And then the city processes those and they begin the inspections in February. So one of the reasons that I've been given from our housing director that they do it the way they do is because in order for the rent increase, if they do pass, to be implemented on July the 1st, they must give the required 90-day notice in advance of that. So the way the Fair Practices Commission is being given or what is it called, resolution to approve, is they list all of the parks to be approved so they can give the 90-day notice, and then they cannot implement it until they pass. If it doesn't pass before July 1st, they can't implement it. Yes?
However, that is true. However, the park owners here do it anyway.
Yes, they have,
And so it's
yeah.
up to us as residents. I will write on my statement, I am not paying this additional rent because you have not passed inspection.
There's a form letter that attorneys recommend for things like that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Hold on, there's a gentleman in the back.
Linda, I'm just a little confused. My question is actually twofold. What is the purpose of this meeting exactly? How do you guys, why are you here? What do you plan to do for us? I don't understand.
We're here, we are a nonprofit, countywide mobile homeowners advocacy group.
Yeah, I
We
know
have
about
representatives
that.
at all the parks. We're here to provide educational information that pertains to all mobile homeowners. These are your city officials. They're here to answer questions. No, they're not part of our board, but most of our board members and park reps are HOA officers and representatives in their own parks. So we're here to provide information. We do this in all the parks. And we're countywide. We're helping parks in many other cities. But we're based in
Okay, then my
Oceanside.
second full part of my question is, why is it that they don't allow people that reside in a mobile home to be on the commission? That if you have no skin in the game,
The park owners can't be on it either. The intent is to keep a level playing field. Nobody gets a say on either
what
side. They're all
kind of
one person.
representation is that?
It's in the ordinance. That's the way it was written in the 80s.
Well, this is 2024, that should be changed.
Well, the reason that the city is reluctant to make changes to 16B is because it has withstood challenges from the park owners all these years, and the city attorney will tell you if you ask him questions like this, that they're very reluctant to open it up to any changes because the park owners will insist on putting their own changes in it. So it has been changed some over the years, but that's a question for the city attorney, and I'm sorry Barbara's not here.
So am I.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Rodney.
Thank you.
Yes, Rodney.
Okay, before we get too far, Daniel, I gotta come back to a issue you brought up. I've got another question, but this is, before we get too far. The isolation valves is a very sore subject with this community. We went to the meeting where they were to make some decisions about the isolation valves. I was wearing a sandwich board identifying the 6 isolation valves that had not been repaired. 6 of them, key ones that affected my house. All the key people that needed to be there that night were conveniently gone. Dave Parsons, the chief of the fire department that has been working the issue for years, was gone. Esther was gone. Lalani's boss was gone. Kirk Munt's boss was gone. All the key people were conveniently gone. Why? Because it was the Labor Day weekend. They turned it over to the lackeys and they voted to approve and screw the isolation valves. And then afterwards, the fire chief representative that was there had the audacity to come to me and say, Rodney, we need to work on this together. What? We have been working for years on it. We got screwed by the Manufactured Home Fair Practices Commission. Those 6 isolation valves will never be repaired. That's a fact. So that's a very sore subject in this community. That's why I wondered why you were back. Very poor.
When you consider how many times and for how long our water was turned off. We're talking a couple days. We were bailing water out of the pool to flush our toilets. And that happened a few years before we finally got some attention on the fire hydrant valves, which were all so corroded you couldn't even identify it was a valve. And if we had a fire here, who would lose money? The city? Us. Our investment is here. I'm not yelling at you, I'm yelling at the city.
I'll yell away for you.
So I'll just say this. So what I didn't tell you, and I probably shouldn't tell you now, it sounds like, I was the fire chief here in the city. And Parsons, don't tell everybody. Dave Parsons was the fire marshal at the time, and so I'm a little familiar with kind of the problems and the issues. Being a private system is one thing. It's not your system is not a city system. It's it's basically a private system. But all that aside, it's one of the notes I took. I'm going to try and find out exactly where the situation's at and what's been done with the valves.
But common sense says this should be on the checklist for our safety, correct?
Yeah.
We updated the checklist and it got lost.
Well, all that aside, if that, again, that's where I shouldn't open my mouth and I'm not an expert,
You weren't there.
but if that's part of the inspection process then
It's not.
Well, it should be. Because this checklist was written in the 1960s and there's things
Well,
on
they
it
need
like.
to update.
And update it.
Update.
Update it. Linda, you always ask what you can do for us. Update it.
I hear you. I hear you. I can't do it sitting
They're
here.
working on it. They are
Yeah,
trying.
they're working on it. Yeah,
Well,
right, the checks and
It's
mail.
like going to the state bar with the city.
I'll be dead by then.
So,
And I'm one of the
hang on for 1 second, let me say a couple of things. I said that this predated me, but I'm not trying to shirk any responsibility on the commission's part. Is that I worked as an operator, planning, we had a fire system, and same thing, we had fire isolation valve loops. And the primary purpose of the isolation valve really was to keep, and Rick can correct me, because he's the expert on fire systems, but it was to isolate sections if they ruptured, so you would not lose the whole fire system, right? So you needed the ability to isolate so that the fire protection system stayed in service. The inspection list, as I said, is that the commission administers 16B, and part of it is forms, which the checklist is one. And at the last meeting, I discussed whether the commission, as I said, the goal, my goal as a commissioner is to take more ownership, and we've done some of it by updating the guidelines to 16B. We, as a commission, do not have the authority to change, reinterpret 16B, but we do have the ability where 16B says you need to pass this inspection, right? And then the guidelines talk about, what's on the inspection, or there's a form for it. And so we had a discussion at the last meeting about looking at all these forms that the commission has. One of them is the resident representative. We've made changes to it. It's in staff's hands and they're reviewing it. The other was looking at transparency about all the finances. The mobile home parks or the commission is actually pretty much self-funded by fees that we collect from the parks. And so I've been, when I say I talk about the commission. The commissioners have been moving to making it more transparent as to what funds are in this account, right? Because that account is going to be used to defend 16B or make, I won't say changes to it, but do issues with inspections. And so I'm trying to be more transparent. I'm trying to have the commission take more ownership. And I'm also trying for the commission to listen to the residents of the place. So we've opened up the email now that anybody can write to the commission. And I tell you, I look at all the emails. And we're working on forms. I want people to show up at the commission because none of the commissioners live in a mobile home park.
Yeah, we know that.
We rely on you to tell us. I rely on you to tell us.
You need to open up a guideline to change that for the commission. You can adjust the guideline.
Let me tell you one of the reasons why you don't is because being a quasi-judiciary body, if you have a homeowner, a mobile home park resident, or it can be a conflict of interest to vote on something that has a direct impact to them.
Do you not live in the district that you reside over? Rick, don't you live in the
Exactly.
district that you reside over?
Yes, but if,
Well, wait a minute.
but if a project's within a certain distance of my home, no, listen. If the project's within a certain distance of my home, I can't vote on it. I live by the golf course.
So you vote on nothing that has to do with District 2?
No, what's that?
No.
I'm telling you, there's restrictions on how you, so if you had a resident of this park on the commission and an issue related to this park comes up, you cannot vote on it. You have to recuse yourself.
Okay.
That'd be okay.
Okay.
Well, it's
There's
okay depending
17
on,
of them.
it would be okay depending on how many members of the thing. That's just one reason. There may be
We
others.
could find a way around that.
I don't know. You can't.
Can we have this lady, she's had her hand up a long time. There's another one here as well.
Lady in the red?
Yes, my concerns are the safety concerns. And I just want to understand this correctly. So, while a shopping center, a factory, a distribution center falls under all the state fire codes, all the OSHA codes, all the environmental codes, from what you're saying, a mobile home park does not fall under only any of those codes because it is privately owned?
No.
Well, see, that's what you alluded to.
No.
Those isolation valves are against state fire codes. I was an OSHA inspector for companies for 20 years.
But I'm talking about private systems, and there's private systems in developments that they are responsible for repairing. The
Right.
city does not repair.
No, they're not responsible for
This
repairing.
system would not be allowed to be put in today, I can
But
promise you.
the state is responsible and the city is responsible for making sure they're inspected correctly, which is monthly. These aren't inspected monthly. I don't see anybody running around checking PID valves every month. They did right after that last inspection where we finally proved that the park was lying to the inspectors.
No way.
Oh.
No way.
I've been through enough inspections, like one-on-one with fire departments, with OSHA, to know what gets covered up, what's getting covered up, and what's not getting covered up. And I see stuff every single day in this park. So who am I supposed to report it to? Do I report it to OSHA? Do I report it to the fire department? Do I report it to the environmental health and safety, the AQMD? Who do I report it to? Because the city doesn't do anything.
Yeah, who's the oversight committee?
Yeah.
Okay, I just asked both of our guests whether or not this matter was still a code enforcement issue and is still pending with Jackie Bickford, our code enforcement officer. We don't know the current status, but I'm sure that we will all go and check on it.
You guys would never let a company, a manufacturer, a shopping center that's bringing in tons of tax dollars for the city to get away with this.
They get fined, and billionaires don't really care
They
so much
don't
about
care,
that.
that's why they get away with
But
it.
the,
But
if
if you
it's a
shut down
code, if it's an outstanding code issue, our code officers will know the status and we will check and we will report
There's
back to
nothing
you.
being done. Leilani Hines killed it. There's nothing being done here. Jackie Bickford will have nothing for you.
Well,
We weren't asking the city to fix it.
Okay, but
What
we
the
can't-
city did was they shut down Star Management, so Star Management didn't have to do anything. That's how we got screwed. Jackie Bickford has nothing to do with it.
All we can do is check the,
No, don't check, I'm telling you.
Well, we have to try to move forward. Give her a break.
Oh, no, oh,
You
come
guys-
on.
You want to be a victim? Good.
Anyway,
Yeah.
as I said,
Can I change the
as
subject?
I said, hang on, Rodney, as I said earlier, and I was honest with you, the commission has got all new members, there's not anything we can do about past grievances. Going forward, we are looking at the inspection reports, and we are questioning whether somebody passed or did not pass, and I personally am questioning staff to make sure that the residents do not pay the rent increase. I cannot address past grievances. I will tell you that I spent 40 years inspecting fire systems as part of a nuclear plant. And the lady is correct that you cycle valves, you flush out because there's dead legs.
This system's different. Your system also supplies your water, right?
Yeah.
To your units.
Domestic water tank fire.
Yeah, it's domestic water. There are systems that they're connected, there are a separate system, they're connected to the domestic
Come
water.
out today to be.
All right,
Right.
that's what the water department said.
That's true. It went on from phase one, way more than ever did. I live with the very end of phase two. I didn't have water for 2 days because this water is gone. And they say, oh, well, your pipe is properly. I said, why would my people connect to phase one if I live in phase two, 4 miles away from it?
yeah, it's hard to say because I had to, when I did this, a lot of, when they built stuff, sometimes the drawings were lost or they didn't do drawings of different standards back whenever this fire system. But I would agree, and as I keep saying, that going forward, we're looking at the inspection report. I do note that when I looked at the current form for inspections, they do take into account, fire valves are not in there, but they do take into account combustible inspections. They look for trash and combustibles. So there is an aspect of it that is related to fire safety. Now, do we need to upgrade that inspection report?
Yeah.
Well, I am in your corner because I've asked about that. And so, but let me just say this. I am one commissioner out of 5, and it takes 3 to do stuff. I think, without talking to the city attorney, in fact, I think she responded about forms, that the commission can adjust forms as necessary so they can make 16B work, right? And I'm not a lawyer, And when I said that we're gonna take more ownership, we're gonna work with staff, because the city attorney is the expert on the law. I'm just a commissioner. So,
Just so everybody knows, about, was it 2 years ago, Joe? 3 years ago? During COVID, a couple of us that were city commissioners were asked to participate in updating the inspection checklist. It hadn't been updated since the 60s. We worked every week for, 8 months with Angie Hannafin, who was then our housing administrator, and with Marjorie Pierce, who was our former housing director, on the phone, on Zoom calls, researching all the laws on every subject on the checklist, removing the old stuff like payphones and your water fountains, and putting on relevant stuff like the potholes that are trip hazards and all the other things, like your water valves and things that should be on that checklist. When Marjorie and Angie left, so did George Rivera from Housing, and so did Megan Crooks from Housing. When Ms. Hines came in, it was sometime later, and she could not find that report, even though it was ready to be presented to the council. So we have our notes. We've provided the city with copies of all of our notes from those meetings, and we're working on it with Dan and the other commissioners, trying to push for that to get resolved. Oh, yeah. And it's senior, it's lighting in senior parks, all of that we updated to the current codes in the checklist that would have been approved if we could have gotten it before the council. That hasn't happened yet. This gentleman's been waiting for a long time.
Thank you. My arm's going.
I'm sorry.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I really want to call out and thank the members, owners here in Francis County Array that participate in our hack meeting, our gizmo meeting, and go out and spend their volunteer time to make sure that these issues are brought to light. I'm a fairly new owner, and I've never owned a mobile home until 6 months ago of buying here. It seems to me that this health and safety inspection is critical to the conversation here, and that we go through once a year. The owners throw a little lipstick on the pig. July 2nd, we're out of compliance, and we wait a year and hope to address the issue again. Well, that's not right. We deserve to live in dignity and have health and safety in our homes here in these parks. This is what we worked all our lives so that we could have a reasonable retirement and do that. And we have to have some sort of mechanism. What is the mechanism that on July 30th, when things aren't working, or with things that get missed, like our pool and jacuzzi here with the scuzzy debris in the jacuzzi for 6 months, not even on the list to be repaired.
Hold on a second. Let me answer his question. Two parts to that. One is that when you move into a park and you sign your rental agreement, that is a civil contract between you and the park owner. And there are things the city can do, like code enforcement and issuing fines and increasing the fines and doing those things. But anything else that above and beyond that is a civil legal process, and that's one of the reasons that we network with 5 lawyers in the area that specialize in mobile home law. Those are failure to maintain issues with your park, and there are lawyers that specialize just in those things. And that can be addressed, and we can refer any homeowner or any group of homeowners for a consultation, and consultations don't cost you anything. So if anybody that wants to ask questions like that of the attorneys that know the law on these issues, we will be glad to refer you for that. Just a minute, Rodney's had his hand, I'm sorry, Edward, just 1 second.
Okay.
Yes, Rodney.
I'm going to change the subject. I'll get away from the isolation valves, okay? So Daniel, I'll take you some slack. But I got to bring up an issue since we're just sharing here amongst friends. And Penny Russell, don't shoot me. Okay. So, but I got to go back a couple of years in time where at the end of June 2022, my neighbors across the street in a park called Laguna Vista were paying about $650 a month on average across 272 units for their space rent. Less than a year later, 8 months later, they were paying $741.91. Now what did that do? It put an additional $298,000 in the wallet of the park owner, a 14% increase, 14%. Now, I get the CPI and all that kind of stuff because the first part of the increase was a CPI increase of 3.9% that came in July of 2022. Well, earlier in June, the Lonnie Hines sent out a letter to the Laguna Vista residents saying, hey, your park owner came and asked for a 26.6% increase. I can't imagine what that did to the pacemakers of the homeowners over there. I only found out about it a month later by accident. And I wrote Leilani and I said, what gives? What's going on? She said, well, there's going to be a hearing. Okay? Well, that hearing came 8 months later. And if Leilani Hines were here, bless her heart, she would say chapter 16B, which she says ad nauseum. Okay, I'm getting tired of hearing 16B from Leilani Hines. But all of a sudden, I went to the meeting that night. Linda, you were there because you championed the meeting with Bruce Stanton. And that 26.6%.
No, I did not champion anything with Bruce Stanton.
Okay,
I
well, you were there.
championed these homeowners and I
Okay,
wrote
well,
a
you were
brief
there. Hang
in
on,
defense of
let me
it.
finish. Let me finish, okay? You were there. And that 26.6% increase miraculously dropped to 18.1 or 8.1. And I'm like, what? 8.1. Now, during the meeting, Walter Hambley, bless his heart, said, well, we're going to cover 3.9% of that 8.1% increase from the July one that just happened. Okay, so that left a balance due of 4.2. And Walter Hambley asked, he said, well, why don't we just let the next CPI increase that's coming cover that 4.2? At that point, Maggie Dalrymple reached over and shut off his mic. And I'm like, what? She shut off his mic so he couldn't talk any longer. Well, then this consultant, bless her heart, did all this tappity-tap-tap on the computer, and they dropped the 4.2 down to 3.75. How they did that? I don't know. It was magic. It was all done. But what if we did this? What if we did this? I'm not done. I'm getting to the point. Okay? 14% increase. Now, my heartache with that meeting was all these bumbling questions were asked that never really got answered. And there was a lot of concern about missing data and facts, and we don't understand this and we don't understand that. Well, it got to be 10 o'clock, and we were so pressed for time, it's so late, we got to go home. They pushed through a vote, and they gave a 3.75% increase to my friends over at Laguna Vista. Now, somebody could have stood up and said, hey, it's late, we got some questions here, we don't have all the facts, let's break and let's reconvene later. Nope, that wasn't done. We pushed it through. Then, 3 weeks later, they came a CPI increase of another 5.78%. So that totals up to 14% in less than 1 year for my friends over there at Laguna Vista. Now, Daniel, I find from the Mobile Home Fair Practices Commission, no fairness. No fairness. That meeting should have stopped. Linda, you could have stood up and said, wait, let's take a break. But you did you?
There are things you don't know. Hold on. I submitted.
Anybody could have.
Can I finish? What you don't see is that MAC, on behalf of other lawyers that consulted on this, submitted an amicus brief with all of those kinds of things in it to that commission prior to the hearing. All the commissioners had the brief, they had the legal arguments, including the thing about the $500 illegal fees that were not refunded to the homeowners. And they got it wrong because they found that because the fees were paid to the management company, which is also owned by the same guy, that they didn't have to refund it. That was, wait, but Dan is the only person who voted no.
Dan voted
He voted no. The others voted yes. I went up to Dalrymple and Hambley during the break, tried to show them the law, and they would not look at it.
So
They
3
said,
weeks later, Alyssa Presti said at the April meeting, Alyssa Presti said,
You're not hearing her,
she
you're
goes,
not hearing me,
she
you're
goes, you know what?
monopolizing the meeting,
She
you're
goes,
taking up time.
next time, we learned a lesson that we should have had more facts and data before we made that decision. I almost fell out of my chair. Now, it didn't affect me.
No, I object to the outset. I called Linda Walshaw and I wanted to know about this guy Stanley, whether or not he would be,
Hey,
somebody to
you
engage.
think
You
that's
stop.
rude, not me.
I'm speaking.
I didn't get
Shut up. Stop.
So-
hey, no, we're not doing this. We're gonna be respectful.
I called you.
Everybody.
Let me finish. I called you and I did not get an endorsement. That's all I can say. That's all I will say.
Can we please, we have a lot of material to cover that is relevant to the homeowners in the current time frame. There are things happening in the city right now that you need to know about your park and how it will be
about
affected.
conversion.
So can we please, can we wait until, can we wait?
We are.
I know that. Can we hold,
No, I want to just get this straight right now. We're here from Laguna Vista, we are the board, we were on the board at the time. Rodney, as much as you applied for us and everything, you've got a couple of figures wrong, you've got a lot of stories wrong. So let's forget about Laguna Vista right now, let's talk about your issue that's going on right now. But these two council people are here to help Rancho San Luis Rey.
thank you, Christie. Hold on one second. Edward has had his hand up for a long time. After that, can we please hold our questions until we can present the rest of the material that we brought for you tonight? Thank you, Edward.
Listen up, somebody take charge and not let this meeting be turned into a quarrel. I think there are people here who are purposely breaking up this meeting and trying to get into a shouting match and keeping this meeting off track. I came here to get this, to learn about what can be done externally. A lot of these issues could be done internally by hack, supposedly they are, and we are here for purposes that are above that. And this whole thing has been thrown off track. It's being broken up by quarreling, and I think the people who are doing the most shouting and yelling and quarreling are doing that on purpose and wasting all of our time. Now take charge of the meeting, keep it orderly, and do not permit this shouting and quarreling and taking over the meeting like the great shouter over here. He's here to take over the meeting. All right?
Okay, we can take additional questions about any of these topics once we present the rest of the materials, but let's get through what is relevant to your part. Yes, Jim? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm short, I couldn't see you.
Do you need the mic or are you okay?
No, I got the question if I understand this isolation valve correctly. Some of it is not working, some of it is.
Yes.
Okay. But it's on the safety list, and that means that is not working, means we don't have to get a rent increase.
It's not on the checklist.
Why not?
The things that are on the checklist is minimal. It's not on the check. That's why we tried to update the checklist. And we're working on pushing that to get it updated.
Have to make sure
That's why they went around it to go to the fire department to get some action. It's not on this regular list.
Right. Okay.
The other,
Yes, Debbie, hold on one second.
the other thing that for the people in this park that we've gone through.
Does she have a microphone? Because it's really hard to hear.
Okay.
You want the mic? Debbie's from Laguna Vista.
I'm from Laguna Vista. I'm also a member.
We don't need you.
Pardon?
Hi,
One of the things I wanted to say, it's very important that your board make sure that when they do your inspections, that the manager is going on his own with the city representative. If you want it to be fair, you make sure when the city inspection is done, have some regular people, even off the board, call Jackie. When those inspections are done, it should not be always just a board member. Go to your board, tell them what's broken.
They know about it, they attend those meetings.
Okay.
But they didn't allow ours this week, this time.
Yeah.
They didn't give the proper
It's
notification.
changed.
The proper notification, and
We've
they've
been
been,
on those,
yes.
been on those inspections, I followed that rule,